Hey, it's Kyle Reed, co-host of the Why That Worked podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. I'm jumping in before today's episode with a big thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us each week, tuning in and sharing your feedback on how the show is resonating. In fact, I'd love to share some of your comments. Here's what you've been saying on Apple Podcast. Episode 1 is mind-opening. Love the simplicity shared of how to create a framework. Such a great episode. Fantastic. Really interesting and useful for my work. Thank you. Love the new format. The last 2 episodes have been life-changing. Keep up the great work. Here's some comments we read on YouTube. Awesome show, you all. Love it. Love the new series. Great episode. It's both interesting and applicable. Can't wait for next week's episode. This is why we do what we do here at StoryBrand, empowering you to clarify your message, connect with your audience, and grow your business. And your feedback and comments help us make the show even better so we can keep bringing you episodes that deliver more insights you can use in your business and your life. So keep them coming. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share your thoughts in the comments on YouTube. Your feedback helps us know what's exactly resonating with you so that we can select topics and deliver new, fun, value-packed episodes. And if you don't ever want to miss a new episode of the show, follow Why That Worked wherever you listen to podcasts and like and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
You're listening to the Why That Worked podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you've ever wondered why certain brands, trends, or cultural phenomena find success while others don't, you're in the right place. Every week we unpack why something worked, then give you actionable insights that you can use in your own life. Now let's dive in with your hosts, Donald Miller and Kyle Reed.
Kyle, how weird is it that you would pay $40, go to Zany's here in Nashville, sit down, get a beer, get some chicken wings. They need to improve their food, by the way, at Zany's.
That helps.
And watch somebody stand up on stage and do a routine that's specifically designed to make you laugh. Have you ever if you were like an alien and you came and you'd be like, what are these people? I don't understand what these people are doing. That guy's not actually saying anything. How weird is it that comedians exist is what I'm getting at.
Weird, because to take it a step further, we live in Nashville, Tennessee, and the last place I want to go to is downtown Nashville. And so the fact that on a
I love downtown Nashville.
I guess I'm a more curmudgeon than you.
Downtown Nashville.
The last thing I want to do on a Tuesday night is to get dressed, drive downtown, deal with parking, walk through the crowds, walk through the bachelorette parties, and go sit in an arena and laugh.
Go see big comedians if you're at Bridgestone.
Well, yeah,
I've
seen a couple. Yeah. You're more hip and trendy than I am, I guess. But yeah, it's weird. What a weird thing. And we're all sitting in a room, like 20,000 of us looking in the center of the room and listening to someone talk and laughing.
Who have you seen live?
Oh, so recently I saw Chappelle at Bridgestone.
At Bridgestone? I had tickets to that Chappelle Joe Rogan show for all my buddies, and it got canceled. Yeah, it got canceled.
So when he came back, I saw him. I
don't think I ever got my money back for that.
I saw Bill Burr there. That was like 6 months ago. Seeing Bill Burr at Bridgestone.
Did he sell it out?
Almost. Not as much as Chappelle. They had half the room closed off.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't. But I've never laughed at a consistent. It was almost like I never had a moment to breathe because I was laughing the entire time. There was not a pause. Chappelle's more thoughtful. You get a kind of a break and he's giving you some culture commentary. Bill Burr was just hit after hit after hit. It was so funny. So I've seen those guys recently. Buddies and I, when we go on golf trips, we'll save up comedy specials. And to break the drive up, we'll just sit there and listen to these latest ones out. And that's so much fun. So those are the last. What about you? What are the last kind of up and coming comics you've seen at Zany's?
I shouldn't position myself as a collector of comedy shows. Betsy and I saw Seinfeld at TPAC.
Okay, that would be a bucket list type thing.
It should be.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the most sort of professional, dialed in, master control of an audience I've ever seen in my life, and I'll say it now, will ever see. I love Nate Bargatze. Obviously a Nashville guy, super, super funny guy. Theo Vaughn is on some other planetary level of comedy. He's coming from, it's almost like Hey, I'm Theo Von. Here's comedy from Mars. It's just like, no, I don't know what world he's in.
You know, people think Elon Musk is an alien. Theo Von is probably an alien
You could
too.
probably start that as a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
And it would
I
take
think it's
off.
kind of been
and by
started.
the way, Theo Von would love it.
Yeah.
He's super funny. One of the most amazing nights I ever saw was John Acuff. John is an acquaintance. I've known John for a long time. I met John when he was in high school. Did you know
way.
that? Yeah,
No,
I met him
had
at
no
his
idea.
house. I stayed at his house when I was doing a speaking gig because his dad had brought me in to speak in North Carolina, right across from University of North Carolina, and he was a kid. And he was a cool kid, great kid. And I still think of him as a kid. He's like 40-something. John did one of the most amazing things I've ever seen a human being, and certainly an acquaintance, do. He booked 2 nights at Zanies, worked up an hour and 15-minute comedy routine, walked on that stage and crushed it.
Wow.
Crushed from the time he got up there to the time he left. My wife and I went and did 2 nights in a row. I might have given them he's not a comedian.
Yeah.
He's very funny.
Yeah,
you listen to him speak and he's very funny. But he just nailed it. And, I knew as a speaker, never been a comedian, but I knew how hard what he just did was, how hard a work. I would equate it to training for an Ironman intellectually and delivering. The audience loved him. He was great. Kudos. So that was one of the coolest nights I've ever seen.
The first thing I kind of really, and I think if you ask someone listening to this, they probably would circle around this answer, is just the authentic side of things. So I came across this clip of Andrew Schulz, who's one of my favorite comedians. He's got a great podcast.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Probably extremely popular.
Yeah,
but I've never heard of him.
Well,
So
you only like the up and comers. And so I came across this clip, and I think he did a better job summarizing than what I can. But I wanted to play this clip because I think one of the reasons why we need comedy, or like why
This is Andrew Schulz.
Andrew Schulz.
Schulz.
Schulz. Yeah, I think that's how you say it.
Spell his last name so folks can find him.
SCHULZ. Andrew Schulz.
Yeah, Schulz sounds
yeah,
right.
he's great. But I came across this clip, and I think he kind of summarized why I think there's comedy. So let me just,
why it exists.
Yeah, let me play it. Let me play it.
The other part, authenticity. I've always been drawn to, and we'll wrap this up right now, but I've always been drawn to Larry David, and I try to figure out why Larry David was this amazing character that breaks all cultural barriers. Anybody you meet that has experienced Larry David loves Larry David, right? He's not just old Jewish people's favorite comic. He's young Puerto Ricans' favorite comic too, right? Why? And it's because Larry David is an experiment in authenticity. It's what would it be like if you were your true self 24 hours a day, right? Hey, can I have a bite of your sandwich? No. Why not? I don't like your mouth. We all want to say that, but don't. So when we see somebody say it, we gravitate to that. And I think that what I always believed is I was going to do authentic material. I was going to do material that came from me. It hits you in your gut. I don't do material for how you want the world to be in stand-up. I do material for how we know the world is down here.
So when I came across that, I was like, well, he just summarized how I feel.
Yeah.
But I think that's
Which, by the way, says everything about comedy. He summarized how I feel.
Yeah. Yes.
That's one of my 6 reasons that I think comedians exist. Reason number 2 was they say what we think.
Yeah.
Or their ability, they have a way of articulating what we think about something.
Totally.
That most people wouldn't have spent the time to actually sit there and try to articulate it.
And what I love about that is he doesn't say it in the way like my dad would tell me how to say it. He makes me laugh. So it's like your dad's like, here's how the world works. He says it in a humorous, story-driven way that makes me laugh while also putting in authentic truth inside of it. That I think that's what we're drawn to.
Reason number 1 and number 2 for me were, 1, they say what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we admire somebody who actually will speak their mind. They're not being careful.
Yeah.
Right? Of course they are being careful, but they're not being careful in the way that we are careful. And there's something about comedians is there's still a part of them that's feral. And there is something that is intuitively interesting about a feral human being. Now let's say you got a pet dog.
Yeah.
You don't. You have cats.
I don't have a cat. Yeah. Cats, not cats. Let's
I have cats now.
Yeah, I have
2 cats and a dog.
Yeah.
They're great. But wouldn't part of you want a cat that's like 10% bobcat?
Yeah,
just be honest. Just a little bit like could kill me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something that's just kind of interesting about. We have this one cat. We got these 2 cats at a shelter. One cat, Trout, has a look of a wild jungle cat. Like it's not like a gray and white cat. It's kind of like a yellow and gray cat with these weird looking eyes. And I'm like, that's my favorite. Because it's kind of feral and kind of dangerous.
You don't know what it's going to do.
You don't know what it's going to do. And I think that they think, when I say reason number 1 is they think they're slightly feral.
Yes. Well, I think too, to jump on your point there, as we go out throughout our life, we kind of know the expectation of what's going to happen during the day or in a conversation. It's kind of organized. A comedian will disrupt all of that by just opening up a line. Yeah. And you go, oh my, like it jumped, you get knocked off where you're thinking, and then you go down the path. It's kind of the wildness, like you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by feral.
Yeah.
There's something interesting about something that you can't control. There's also something I think that we admire about somebody that you can't control. Like you're not gonna. We just went and saw the documentary, the movie on Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
I've seen it twice in the theaters now, and we'll probably see it a third time. Not because it's such a great movie, but it's actually worth studying both as a movie and as a personality. Also, Scorsese's documentary No Direction Home about Bob Dylan. But there was something about Bob Dylan that I summarized recently in an Instagram post. What made Bob Dylan famous is the quality of his work. He wrote songs that can't be ignored. They can't be ignored. You can't ignore Blowing in the Wind. You can't ignore Like a Rolling Stone. Quantity, 60-plus albums, 44, I think, studio albums. I mean, just ridiculous and constant. His tour is called the Never Ending Tour because it started and it's never finished. And then third was his attitude was, you will not control me. I will stand up here on this stage and deliver this concert with an electric band while you boo me and call me Judas. And the fact that he did that. He did that in his European tour. He did that at Newport Folk Festival. They were booing him. They were throwing things at him because they wanted Blowing in the Wind acoustic. And he gets up there and he's copying the Kinks, and that is now arguably the greatest album ever, most widely respected album ever, is the one that was being booed. And it's almost like comedians in some ways go first. They go out there and they go, I'm going to say something that is going to be charged. It's going to be probably a little bit offensive to you. It's going to be taboo. And you get to watch somebody jump off the high dive into a 2-inch baby pool of water. Yeah. and there's something that's just like, this dude's crazy. That's crazy that he's going to say that.
But they change culture. I mean,
well, they do change culture. And that gets to why probably they're important or not important. I don't know. Or, they're either good for us or bad for us. I think they're probably a little bit of both.
I think they're good for us, though, because it's almost like you need that person in the room who will say the thing that everybody's afraid to say and go first, to your point, and take the risk.
Well, that's reason number 2 on my list is they say what they think is somehow admirable. They say what we think is the second reason that I think they say what we think, but we're just not willing to say.
Yeah, are we afraid to say?
We're afraid to say.
Yeah, and they say it in a way that we probably couldn't articulate, as well. Yeah, one of the things I would add to that is one of the reasons I found was I think comedy works because they understand culture. And what I mean by that is if you think about a comedian, there's all kinds of different people walking into the room that they have to make laugh. And so, a couple episodes ago, we talked about thought leaders. And one of the things is you mentioned in the episode, you talk about tribes. Like we like to affirm bias our thoughts and we gravitate to a thought leader that basically, but a comedian doesn't always have that opportunity or ability to have a room of like-minded people because there's all kinds of different, people walking into the room and they have to be able to culturally commentate on something in an entertaining way that's broad. And I think comedians, and the reason why comedy works is because we kind of need that shared experience of people seeing this overarching like absurdity that we're all thinking about, that you're now telling us in a funny way. It's a joint experience.
I mean, even Nate Bargatze, who's so, clean, he's saying things about his relationship with his wife that you really shouldn't say publicly. You know what I mean? Like, he's saying, like, he goes, the other day we're flying to London. We're leaving Nashville, we're flying to London. And I say to my daughter, what time do you think it is in London? And she's like, okay, well, it's 4:12 here, so it's, 11:12 or whatever it is there. And he goes, hon, what do you think? And she goes, 11. And he's like, really? Why would you answer it that way? You know what we're doing. You know the game we're playing. She goes, 11. My guess is 11. And it's like, why won't you answer like an actual normal person? Why do you have to be like that? And then, of course, they get in a fight for like the rest of their trip to London.
Yeah.
Every one of us has had that moment, but you're not allowed to talk about it publicly.
No,
about
you're
the fact
not.
That your wife is annoying you. I remember the 12. We had a 12. My wife has a 12-year-old baby sister, Gloria.
Yeah.
And Gloria's sitting next to me on the couch. We're watching this special, and she just goes, I can't believe he's saying this about his wife. I can't believe he's saying this about his wife. She's too young to know that that's actually why he's saying it, because he's saying something none of the rest of us are willing to say. Yeah. So reason number 2 for me is they say what we think.
Yeah, for me, so, another point I came up with is, I don't know if you went down or thought about it this way, but there's something about life that's it's just hard. Like, life is hard. It's not easy. I was talking to a buddy last night, and his daughter is a freshman in college. She comes back home from Christmas break. For Christmas break, she's going back, and he's like, I'm going to take her out to a nice dinner before she goes back. I was like, oh, good for you. And I could tell, though, that's not where the story's going. And the story's going that they finish dinner. He gives his ticket to the valet to go get his car, and he's standing there for 20 minutes waiting. He's like, where's my car? And finally, he's like, the guy comes back and he goes, hey, I can't get your car open. Like, your key's not working. It's a brand new car. And so they run off to go check, and he's like, look, and he cannot get his car open. And he's like telling me, he's like, I'm getting more frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated. And he's like, the key will not work. And he's breaking the key. And he's like, for like an hour. And it basically, the point was like, here I am trying to like do something sweet with my daughter. And it turned into me like trying to hold it together that I don't lose it in front of her and this 20-year-old valet kid. And it's like, just reminded me of like, as sweet as you want life to be, there's still hard moments of life. And so it makes me think, like, with comedy, like, it kind of pulls you out of moments where it's like the everyday grind of life of like, it's another day, and you get the chance to kind of just go off to a place.
There's
and just
something,
laugh.
I see what you're saying. There's something about commiserating on the miserableness of life that is somehow, I don't know, it's comforting.
It is. Well,
right.
And one of the things I love that comedians have been doing lately is they make you lock your phone up, when you go into a show.
Oh,
like,
I haven't had that experience
Yeah,
yet.
they don't let you you can't have your phone because they don't want you to film it. But it's like,
it's their bit.
It just allows you to escape the noise and kind of like, just for a couple hours, just be a human and laugh.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes I just need that.
There's something therapeutic about it, that commiserating about our miseries.
If you don't communicate clearly, all your emails, your website, social media posts, everything you're communicating will be ignored. Storybrand.ai is like the world's best communication expert writing it for you. Imagine having the world's best communicator writing your tagline. Just type in the name of your company, answer a few prompts, and voila. Hey, that's a good one. Use it to write your social media posts, website wireframe, emails, lead-generating PDF, product or service descriptions, anything you need for your business. What would happen to your revenue if every word that left your business was crystal clear and worth paying attention to? Storybrand.ai is your competitive advantage, so you'll say it clearly. Try it right now and let us write your custom tagline for free at storybrand.ai. And now back to the show.
Normally, I don't have lists of the 5 or 6 reasons something works, but I just wanted to one-up you today. I wanted you to feel like inferior as we were sitting here because you clearly didn't make a list.
I mean, I could make you feel inferior and show you my list, but go ahead.
I don't know why. I mean, just show me the list. I mean, just tell the listeners your list. You alluded to this. Number one was they say what we think. Number two was they say what they think. They say what we think. They say it well. Have you seen?
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary called Comedian with Jerry Seinfeld? I watch historical documentaries a lot.
Yes.
Either about business or about history or about World War II or famous figures or whatever. Comedian is the best documentary I've ever seen.
Wow.
It is about Jerry Seinfeld wrapping up the show, throwing away his material, and starting over. So you watch a comedian, arguably the best, I mean, certainly top 5 of all time,
Absolutely.
right?
Uh-huh.
Arguably the best ever, start over, and it's not a comedy. It's literally watching a guy struggle and work and bomb on stage. He'd go in and he'd get 5 minutes anytime he could, so he could test a joke. And then that joke wouldn't work. So of course it doesn't go into the and he works up 60 minutes. By the end of it, he's got 60 minutes of new material that he can actually take on the road. And I mean, that dude worked his butt off. At one point he actually put the pieces of paper of jokes, like yellow tablet, on a street in front of his house so you could physically see. And it was like 40 yards of individual yellow pieces of paper that he had written on to actually come up with this material.
Just to get 60 minutes.
Yeah, and then even the timing of it.
Yeah.
Like if you watch Theo or Nate Bargatze is a great example.
Yes.
You try to deliver one of his jokes. Just try it. Try to pretend you're him and deliver one of his jokes at dinner, and you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has so perfected the timing of when he's going to drop this line and when he's going to drop this line and then when he's going to drop this line. And I actually watched his special, his second special and maybe his first special or his second special and his Saturday Night Live opening monologue. And I watched him give the same monologue, only it was different. It was different angles on the same stories, and then punch in this one line from the previous special. And you could see how his mind was evolving, where it was like, okay, I'm going to give this, but that one was so good, and nobody's probably heard that one, so I'm going to bring it in. Or what happened was he's delivering it, and he accidentally went into old material because he's so used to going from here to there. You could watch the mind actually work and how he did it. There's something about this sort of crystal clear, having been worked on so many times, that he just knows it inside and out, and he can deliver it perfectly. It's like we know Scott Hamilton, who's the Olympic skater, working on that routine over and over until it's just completely dialed in is what a comedian has done. And I think the third reason that we like comedians is they are presenting something that has been so freaking polished that you're actually, without knowing it, watching a master of their art deliver it so incredibly well. And Jeff Foxworthy is an old friend, and the amount of time that he would put into a routine was insane. And when he did Portland, when I lived there, I got to go, and we went backstage and met him and Larry the Cable Guy and all that kind of stuff. And then my friends are not Hicks. This is Portland, Oregon. They're flaming liberals, right? And they're sitting there, and they're rolling. I mean, they're rolling. And they kind of went in rolling their eyes, going Larry the Cable Guy and Jeff Foxworthy and Hick, and this is all Southern humor in Portland, Oregon, and he won them over in 5 minutes. And it's just it's how he has so carefully articulated every little cadence and every beat of this, I think, is one of the reasons that we like it. We would like it in a speech, Winston Churchill speech or whatever. It's like, that's dialed in, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is dialed in, and I think that's one of the reasons we like him.
Agreed. That was a big revelation for me in the last, over time, as I've started to see, like, they make it look so effortless that it seems like they didn't practice any of it.
Right.
And then when you come to find out, like I've heard Rogan talk about this, it's just, he'll spend 2 to 3 hours just writing
Yep.
every day.
Yep.
Just writing.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Every day, writing.
Jerry Seinfeld makes that point too. He said he was sitting at a cafe, and he was taking the day off or taking the morning off, and he watched these guys cross the street with hard hats and lunch pails going to work on this building. And he said, oh my word, if they have to work at their job every day, why am I not working at my job every day? And he developed a discipline, which is that's the main reason that he is so successful, is he had the discipline. He also sat in writing rooms and filmed 10 years worth of episodes of Seinfeld, which I think the reps get you there too.
100%.
But he actually has the discipline. Yeah, some friends of mine, they like Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill and some of the pot smoking Pineapple Express sort of guys. They really admire those guys, and I'm like, why do you admire them? I'm like, well, they're like me, you know. And I said to them, probably lost the friendship, I don't know, can't even remember who I said it to, but I said, you got to understand, they're not like you at all. They're pretending to be like you, but they're not like you at all. They do not sit around and smoke pot in their mother's basement. These guys work their butts off. They work their butts off. And they have incredible discipline and incredible work ethic. And then you see them, the character that they have imagined up with all that hard work, that's what you're seeing, and you think that's them. It's not them.
And there's that's the thing I walk away with, just even thinking about this as a whole, is like, there's this mindset that you should just show up, at least for me, show up and it just should be perfect. And the truth is the greats, the masters, in this instance, comedians, but also other people we admire, that is not true. That there is probably no one, I would go as far as say no one, who just shows up. They have put in the work.
Not if you want to win.
One of the things, Don, you're talking, it sounds to me, I'm just picking up on this, comedians have actually like shaped a lot of the way that you think about things, or have shaped some, your life, in whether it be business or speaking or even relationships. I was just curious, as you were talking, like, how has comedians comedy shaped you as who you are today, as a business leader, a dad, a friend?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, you watch anybody do something. I walked out of Seinfeld not wanting to be a comedian, but wanting to be a better writer. You could smell the discipline. You could smell it. You could feel it. I mean, I've never been in a room like that. He started out on a scale of 1 to 10. His opening jokes were 10. We were laughing. Yeah. And by the time he was finished, about an hour and 10 minutes later, we were at 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt about Bill Burr
I was at painful, uncontrollable, like, stop it, you're hurting me.
Yes.
And he was firing them off like fireworks going off, and one was building on the other and calling back to this, and I'm just like, never seen anything like that. And it made me want to go back and write better books. It's like, hey, dude, you need to go back and you need to do better at this. I remember I rewrote Blue Like Jazz 54 times.
I didn't know that. Really?
54 times. And there was a seminary professor down south somewhere, I used to know his name, and he was my biggest critic. He just hated me. He absolutely hated me. And, the book was banned from Christian bookstores, and, very controversial at the time. I still don't know. I have no idea what the controversy. I really don't. I have no idea what you guys were. It was just different.
They didn't like jazz.
Yeah, they didn't like jazz. And one of the things he said was, this is the easiest form of writing that there is. And finally, I just publicly wrote an open letter to him, and I said, do it. Do it. Like, literally sit down, seminary professor, and actually try to write one page, much less 250 pages, that feels this easy and free. Just try it. And it shut him down. He never opened his mouth again.
Yeah, and what's the number one rule of going to a comedy show is try to heckle the comedian, because you're going to lose. And that's what, that's actually such an interesting point, Don. I didn't know that, because I think that's ultimately the bigger overarching thing is what I'm learning here is we love comedy because it's masterful. And what you brought up there is, I remember that book coming out. It just seemed like you just were sitting in a coffee shop just musing.
I have a friend who recently read On the Road by Jack Kerouac and was just commenting about how amazing that he did that free form, that he never edited any of it. He just took out a piece of paper. And I'm like, do you really believe that? Like, yeah, that's what he said. That's what everybody knows that On the Road is, and I'm like, that's part of the act. That's part of the act. Supposedly it took him like 8 years to write that book. It's you got to understand, this is part of the act. It's part of the fiction didn't stop there. He created a mythology around himself like Bob Dylan did. Like half of the stuff isn't even true. Like, but Dylan's like, I grew up in a circus and I learned to play from cowboys. He never was in a circus.
Great story though. I love
great
that.
story.
Yeah,
and Dylan knew like, oh, you think I'm done when I get off stage? I'm not. I'm always on stage. And Jack Kerouac was like that too. I mean, I don't know what point that brings up except for it is a performance. I'll get to the last two things because we've kind of already hit them. They give voice to our dark side. Yeah. They say the things that we haven't even been able to articulate, but kind of like, that's kind of true, right? I don't want to be the kind of person who thinks that, but it's kind of true. They definitely give voice to our silly or our stupid side. I mean, the stuff that comedians are talking about is so silly. It's just like, come on, you got to give me a break. They give voice to that. And then this is a big one, and it kind of has to go into just that presentation being so dialed in. They optimize for entertainment. And so where I'm optimizing, like when I do a talk, I've given the Story Brand talk 250 times. I actually will give that talk now and realize while I'm giving the talk that I'm daydreaming, and we'll go, oh, you're at this part of the talk now. And my mouth is still moving and the audience is laughing, but I've just given it so many times. I have optimized that talk. I know where every joke goes. I know where, and it's on autopilot. But imagine optimizing a talk only for laughs. Like testing it, that didn't get a laugh, that's out. This did get a laugh, that's great. When I do this action, it gets a bigger laugh. And optimizing it only for laughter is fascinating. Yeah. That's why John Acuff was so impressive. Yes. Because he did it twice. He must have tested the material. I don't know how, and it was dialed in, man. It was dialed in. Like it was a laugh a minute without question. Yeah, I actually remember when he did that. Did you go? No, I didn't. But I remember him advertising it and just being like, what a bold thing. I mean, most people's greatest fear is like public speaking and then do comedy. Do you think comedians are addicted to the audience and laughter? Whoa. Do you think that's part? Like, do you think an element of the need for affirmation and attention is part of what drives them? I don't want to make it like blanket. This isn't a blanket statement, but a lot of the comedians I hear talk, and a lot of my education is through interviews like Rogan's done with them, is a lot of it is there's something in their past that they were either trying to get attention for or coming from or making at a hard upbringing. It's kind of like musicians, they talk about this is like to get that success, there's so much drive because they're not successful. And then when they get successful, how do you follow up with like, there's nothing funny about living in a mansion, or there's nothing like romantic about that. But what's funny is like struggling in this environment. And so I do think there's a degree of that, of like, it's a high of getting a room to laugh. I think it serves somebody who has that proclivity, addiction even, to the audience. It serves their career. It's one of the, I even said to a publisher recently, we were talking about publishing strategy and who you should publish and who you shouldn't, which books you should run with, which books you don't. We talked about the benefit of actually having one of your authors have a narcissistic personality disorder. It's like they're going to sell a lot more books because they're going to be out there on stages. They're going to be saying yes to every podcast. Where somebody who doesn't have that personality is going to be like, I think I just want to be home. Like, I miss my family. And because the addiction isn't driving them to leave home, and it's fascinating to me, some of the public speakers who talk so much about family and how important it is. And I'm like, you spoke 250 times last year. And you always talk about your family. And one of the reasons that I think you're talking about your family is, one, you feel guilty because you don't actually see them and you're not invested in their lives at all because you have an addiction. You have a problem. You have to be in front of an audience. And two, you're covering your tracks. Mm-hmm. If I get up here and talk about how much I love my family, you won't realize that they don't even know who I am, And that's not to throw all comedians under a bus, but I'm just saying there is a need. I'm amazed. I was looking at some of these like highest grossing comedians of 2024. Nate Bargatze. How much did he make? Does it tell you? $80 million. Oh, that is mind-boggling. 1,098,000 tickets sold. Right? Dave Chappelle, 44 million. But Nate did 163 shows. Now, I happen to believe Nate is actually an exceptional dad. Yeah. He travels with his family. Yeah, and she always introduces him. Yeah, he optimizes for family. Yeah. Also, like, where Nate is at right now, you got a shot, buddy.
100%.
And you got to do it right now.
Right.
So please don't say.
Yep.
But Dave Chappelle, been around the block, man. He's been doing this for 25 years, 44.2 million on 30 shows.
30 shows.
30 shows. Jerry Seinfeld, 43.7 million, 82 shows. By the way, he gets $500,000 per show is what I understood. That what he does is he gets a private jet. They fly him there. That's the other thing, that Nate's in private jet territory now, so he's getting home.
Yeah.
That changes everything for a comedian. But what I understood back in the day, this was 10 years ago, you pay Jerry Seinfeld $500,000. He has a specific order that he wants. He brings a few friends or family members with him, and he does 2 shows. So he flies out, does 2 shows. He's back by probably midnight, back in New York if he's doing any sort of East Coast thing. And he's waking up in his putting on his slippers the next morning, having spent time with a good friend, eating great food, and do 2 hours worth of comedy. He's $1 million richer. This is Gabriel Iglesias.
Yeah.
111 shows, 40.6 million.
That's very impressive.
And then I've actually never heard of Matt Rife. Have you heard of Matt Rife?
Yeah. He's
what's his shtick?
So Matt Rife does a ton of crowd work. He's very funny. He's younger, big online, big on TikTok, big on YouTube. I would say he's been doing it a while, but he's really blown up, I'd say, in the last 3 to 4 years.
35.4 million on 125 shows.
Yeah, he's crushing.
Yeah.
He's young and single, though. He can travel.
Can you imagine? I mean, the profit on that thing?
Well, I was going to say,
just some spotlights.
The best thing in the world if you want to start a business is become a funny comedian, because the overhead is incredible. Yeah, the biggest thing I also would walk away from just this conversation and this research on this is comedians have the ability to connect with humans. And when you do that well, you can move people to do something. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting as I was listening to some different things is comedians can say, hey, I'm coming through your town on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to do the hardest thing. And that's, put some pants on, get off the couch and drive down here, and you'll do it. But you won't do that for every comedian. You'll do it for the comedians that have invested the time in building community with you. Huh. So that's why you some of these biggest the biggest comedians
people literally
have podcasts.
The 5th biggest comedian of last year I'd never heard of.
Yeah, and
it's got some sort of community
because they've built a community. And I think you look at some of the people who are maybe on different shows or different sitcoms or SNL or whatever. I don't think they could sell an arena out. But the ones who do are the ones who've put in the work as far as building a podcast out, going on a ton of podcasts, putting in the community effort. And so then when they ask you to come hang out, you feel like it'd be like a buddy who you haven't seen. You have those friends from like college or your mid-20s who you used to have so much fun laughing and hanging. It's like, let's get together again. And when they come through town and they ask me to go here, I'm going to show up and I'm going to tell my wife, my kids, like, hey, I'm going out tonight to hang out with my buddy I haven't seen in 10 years. Yeah. It feels like that. I think comedians have an amazing ability to do that only if they build that community.
And we could go on a long time about different aspects of comedy, but I'm curious, listeners, who are your favorite comedians right now? Why do you think comedy works? Why do you think comedians exist? It's definitely kind of a wonderful mystery that exists out in the world. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Kyle, great to talk to you today.
You too, Dom.
Thanks for listening to the Why That Worked podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you like the show, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know what you think and what you want the guys to talk about in a future episode. Curious about how StoryBrand.ai can help you create clear, effective messaging? Well, you can try it out right now and create a free customized tagline for your business. Just go to StoryBrand.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.